5. Finally, someone other than me speaking the truth about the mortgage crisis. Here's what New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg had to say about it.
It was not the banks that created the mortgage crisis. It was plain and simple Congress who forced everybody to go and to give mortgages to people who were on the cusp. They were the ones that pushed Fannie and Freddie to make a bunch of loans that were imprudent, if you will. They were the ones that pushed the banks to loan to everybody. And now we want to go vilify the banks because it's one target. It's easy to blame them, and Congress certainly isn't going to blame themselves.
Well, Ms. Guilfoyle.
Yes, I find this to actually be an about face for our guy. Like, normally Bloomberg, as of late, has been very measured in his approach, hasn't really been trending, right, conservative. You know, he was down there trying to be supportive of the Occupy Wall Streeters, and now he's actually blaming Congress. But guess it's not going out on a limb because the numbers support what he's saying, let's be honest. But New York tends to be more liberal.
They don't support what he's saying, number one. And also, he happens to be from Wall Street. He made a fortune from down there, right? So I don't.
We also happens
Bloomberg also won't let me smoke a cigar in a hotel room. But let me make one point about this. It is true. We concede the fact that the forcing people to buy mortgages, right, or getting into housing, going back to the Carter years and the Reagan years, the Bush years, the Clinton years, we know that in retrospect that was a mistake. But that doesn't excuse the fact that the banks knew they had bad mortgages in there when they bundled them and sold them as mortgage-backed security.
Yeah, but I disagree.
So that means that they cheated.
With your part where you said we all know now and we're taking responsibility for it. Who is?
I am.
Well, you may be one, but certainly not anyone. Certainly not Barney Frank. Certainly not Chris Dodd before he left. Certainly not Chuck Schumer.
Oh, can I take just? I'm so happy to hear Bob actually say that it was the government at fault. I'm great. I think that's awesome. But here's the other thing. It's not. You could say the banks are at fault too, but they almost had no choice. They had to make money off of crappy loans, and they figured out a way to do it.
You're excusing them for making.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, what are you going to do when you're handed a crap sandwich?
If they didn't do it, Bob, we know this. We have testimony by Chris Dodd, Barney Frank, and Schumer, who said if the banks don't do it, Fannie and Freddie undercut them.
They had no choice.
Let me ask Miss Sanity Mom here.
Sanity Mom.
Sanity Mom. By the way, whoever did that graphic on data on the do's and don'ts, exactly right. That's what she does to me. Oh, bomb. Anyway, if you knew that you had a bunch of 7% mortgages, right, and you knew within those, say there's 1,000 of them that they bundled together.
I'm not really good at math.
100. Okay, fine. But you knew that there were, say, 10% of them were bad. Would you sell them to people for their security, for their retirement?
If the government was saying that we're not going to,
Step back. Who did they sell them to? Don't say they sold them to people for their retirement, because they didn't. They bundled them and sold them to hedge funds, and hedge funds were smart enough to realize that they sucked. So who did they give them to? Guess. 2 words. Fannie and Freddie.
Okay, but I do think it takes 2 to tango.
There are endless numbers of employee compensation plans that bought these things. There are endless numbers of private retirement funds that bought them. Don't try to bail these guys out. They sold crap. Just like Greg said, they sold crap, and that crap comes back to haunt people.
Well, and there is some personal responsibility in this as well, which is it's not just that the banks were selling or giving loans to unwilling people who only made, and who maybe weren't good at math like I'm not, only made a certain amount and getting houses that they could not afford. I mean, it was a two-way street, and we're all paying for it.
Can I read
this? It's like a kid eats too much Halloween candy and is mad that the neighbor gave it to him. Like, you ate it.
Sorry to use it. Barney Frank in 2003 on the Financial Services Committee regarding Fannie and Freddie. I don't want to blame have the same kind of focus on safety and soundness that we have in other departments. I want to roll the dice a little bit more in this situation towards subsidized housing. Basically saying, no interest loans, no down payment loans. This is what would cause the housing crisis.
Well, you know, Eric, a bigger part of what caused it was that the government there was a bill before Congress that would have regulated Fannie and Freddie much more closely. They would have oversight instead of being under the thrift management.
That's what this is.
Yeah, and they should have passed that bill, and they should have been regulated.
And who ran Congress at the time?
Well,
yeah. Can I make a quick point? So these executives at Fannie and Freddie are getting bonuses. They're getting bonuses, and Obama's not saying anything about this. But no, I want to make it clear. If somebody on Wall Street gets a bonus, they're called a fat cat. If you work for the government and you get a bonus, you know what you're called? Private sector talent.
Right.
We need to keep you there, so here's a bonus.
Yes.
But if you were in the private sector, you're a fat cat.
Most of these people did come from Wall Street or related industries, and the only way they could get them to come in and take these jobs is if they promised them a bonus.
I just said! So they're private sector talent.
We're getting wrapped.
If you make a promise, you get who gets you wrapped?
We're getting wrapped.
That was the closest thing to chair dancing you've ever done.
Coming up on the 5, why are Americans so obsessed with Kim Kardashian? Well, some of us are too on the 5, and we have some surprising details on her divorce. And it's dramatic. We'll be right back.